Light on the darkness of addiction and the joy of recovery, from first use to final meeting.
We explore the challenges for people on the road to recovery and the resources available every step of the way. Let's go on the record.
From WPBF 25, this is On the Record with Todd McDermott and Nathalie Pozo.
The most recent numbers show there were more than 106,000 drug overdose deaths in the United States in 2021, and about 75% of those fatal overdoses involve the use of at least one opioid. Joining us now to go on the record, community advocate Rae Whitely. He is the founding pastor of the Trinity Counseling Center, a community resource center in Palm Beach County. Rae, first, thanks for being here. Let's talk about the center. You deal with people's emotional, mental, and personal goals and struggles in the face of addiction.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. We kind of see the worst of the worst. And we go to where they are. We necessarily don't have them come to the offices that we have in Boynton, Lake Worth, and the Revere Beach area, but we go to where they are, which are more so parks, those different communal spaces.
And as a pastor, I know you have some views, some opinions on what's fueling this ongoing opioid epidemic that our community faces.
Oh, great question. Life. We are still seeing the impact of COVID-19. The inflation's there, different anxieties, different stress levels or triggers or those types of things. So a lot of people are just deciding to self-medicate. And once you start to self-medicate, it takes on a life of its own. And that's what we're seeing far too many times right now.
And I mentioned the fatal ODs, and we have to mention specifically fentanyl. Deadly synthetic man-made opioid, much more powerful than heroin, now being mixed with heroin and cocaine, and it's killing people at a very alarming rate. Has that changed the situation, fentanyl itself?
Absolutely, because usually you don't really get too many chances when fentanyl is in the equation. So things are happening so fast. So we kind of had to spring into another gear of action and start to think outside the box on how do we meet some of these needs or just react to some of the stuff that we see.
Tell me about your interaction with people who may have been dealing and are using fentanyl itself. What's the impact of the drug on the people that you are counseling and trying to help?
The impact is, sadly, when we find out that they've mixed it with fentanyl, they've already overdosed. And you hear about the overdoses, and you're somewhat visiting people in the hospitals, and we're having too many funerals, to be frank. You know, so you don't know that they're using it. You just see the impact of the usage.
You know that fentanyl has ratcheted up the danger
Absolutely,
so much.
Absolutely. And the hospital visits and the funerals.
Now, do you have some opinions on next steps to try to take fentanyl itself out of this equation, off our streets?
Yes and no. And here's the yes part. I do think that, talking to me, government has its role. Churches definitely have their roles. Nonprofits have. Impacted persons have. We got to come together and have a conversation. Real-time conversation with real-time answers or offer up some solutions that we may all have, right? What has happened is government think they have all the answers. And then the nonprofits think that they have all the answers, and we are working in like silos. What I know isn't the answer, and it's criminalizing people who have a disease. That's not the answer.
We've heard a lot from politicians about fentanyl itself, but because of this particular scourge, the old ways of dealing with addiction just aren't enough.
No, it's not. And the model that we use to deal with addiction, it's not working. You know, there's a model that was passed down from the 90s or from the 80s, but we're in 2024. We have younger people who are dying from fentanyl, right? And we just don't know how to deal with it, you know? We don't have the answers. We have to first start with knowing that we don't have the answers. But as a community of different sectors, different people, we're pretty smart, and we could craft out just a few things.
And that leads to my other question, which is there, with a change in direction, a change in focus, is there a light at the end of the tunnel, at least when it comes to taking fentanyl out of this equation?
I will hope so. And as a person of faith, I have to have faith that there is. But I'm going to do the best that I can on my watch. And I'll encourage other people to do the best that they can on their watch. And be faithful and prayerful that there will be this light.
Is there a success story you can share?
Absolutely. So here's what we've been doing. We've been educating churches, pastors. We've been educating store owners. We've been educating youth groups, youth organizations as to what fentanyl is. We're leaving it with them. Hopefully that'll make a dent, because education is the key, right? How do we deal with what's causing people to self-medicate, but how do we give them something? I'm ashamed to even mention that 3 years ago, I had no idea what naloxone was. And I was educated. So we took that journey into educating others. Once we start to educate people and they know that it's there, and put in naloxone in every home.
And that has made such a difference. It is saving lives.
It's saving. So here's a success story. We've educated these different convenience stores. And I was in the Boynton Beach area close to a year ago. And somebody mentioned that, Rev, you would not believe, somebody overdosed, and somebody from inside that store had the naloxone, came out, saved this person's life. So that person, it definitely made a difference in the work that we're doing.
And we save one person at a time. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate the work you do.
All right.
Now, coming up, my co-anchor Natalie Pozzo looks at the resources available for people who are struggling with addiction.